I promised my co-presenters I wouldn't present too many slides, and then I made a lot of slides. So here we go. So why is this important for us? Why is it important for mindfulness trainers that we actually look to this modality, this particular incredible modality that Susan Gillis Chapman created out of what would be some very arcane Tibetan Buddhist practices that would be very hard to understand, is that it's actually important for us because we have some issues. And if we're honest, we know that. So we trained in mindfulness, we have all this incredible training, and then we're in conversations and something hits us. And we feel shocked, ashamed, embarrassed, insulted, whatever it is. Somebody tells us something we just did not expect. And where does our mindfulness go in this moment? It's very hard to find. Right? And we've all had these moments. We all do have these moments. And you know, if you've never had a moment like this, just stick around. Life will bring one to you. And then the problem is once we lose contact with mindfulness, sometimes we go further and we get lost in all sorts of negative emotions, and we do or say something that we can really regret. And I'm sure I'm not telling you anything you don't know, right? So then what does that result in is we feel ashamed and embarrassed again. I mean, my goodness, we're mindfulness trainers. How embarrassing. How humiliating, right? So then we get into a mental spiral based on the past history, the future fears, all of these things. And that can actually pull us further away from mindfulness. And this pattern, this spiral, this feedback loop makes us distracted, further distracted. So we can't connect so much with others. Actually, I'm so lost in what I'm thinking about myself that I'm not really listening fully. And I'm no longer really listening to myself. That's what discursive thoughts are. They're a pattern of losing awareness of the present moment. So, you know, it's not that I'm not listening to others because I have some powerful work to do. I'm not really doing the work right in that moment. And this has to do with, you know, all these difficult emotions, shame, and our personal distraction is not just personal. It's never just personal. These things affect societies. They affect the whole world, right? And we start to lose trust in the present moment, and we start to seek out distraction compulsively. And that shapes society. And this really hits us at the holiday dinner table sometimes. Maybe that relative you haven't seen in a long time, and you hold very different views about things. And here you are, this very dignified, well-trained mindfulness trainer. And goodness gracious, there you are at the dinner table at the holiday, and your face is hot, your cheeks are hot, and you're sweating, and you know your throat is tight, or all of these things, and you're losing track of what's going on. And this, of course, is not our aim. It's not our goal. It's not where we want to be. We don't want to go through these patterns over and over and over. Endless cycles of suffering, so it gets called sometimes, right? So we don't have to. We want something better, and we can use all these skills that we have in these situations with ourselves, our families, our societies, and help everyone connect. That's what we want. So just for a moment, I just want to say that the crucial point here is what we're paying attention to. And the goal of this particular system, green zone communication, green light communication, is to actually just give us a few touch points to tune into with our mindfulness, to recognize in relationship, in communication with others, how to move forward, when to pull back, and how to deal with murky, confusing situations. So, sometimes we think, let's be honest, sometimes we hold the mental pattern that mindfulness is going to keep us away from pain. That if we do this perfectly, I won't ever encounter pain, you know? But pain is actually extremely important. It's a natural quality, and it allows us to pay attention. Pain is actually a critical stimulus for mindfulness. And without it, we become disconnected, disabled, distracted, and unhelpful. So, you know, um, mindfulness is not a magical rainbow unicorn fairy. And I'm sorry. I'm sure that's disappointing, right? Because actually, my girlfriend laughed at this slide because she loves rainbows and unicorns and fairies, and she's also a mindfulness trainer as well. And it's great. This is not about aesthetics, right? But it's about a kind of fantasy that we can create about what mindfulness is. And the truth is, mindfulness, we we need to be able to feel pain. We need to be able to feel it acutely. We need to be able to feel subtle pain, and we need to know what to do. So the pain in communication that we're talking about is anxiety, right? And we all know anxiety. And again, we mindfulness does help with anxiety, of course. That's we all love that actually. There's something incredibly powerful about that. It reduces anxiety. And we see this with ourselves. You may see this with your clients. You've seen this on retreats. Everybody calms down. And yet there's something about the intense stimulation of interaction, again, whether it's within your family or your society or your neighbor or whoever it is, that can really get underneath to the core, down to the nerves, those very sensitive emotional nerves that we all have. So, where did I do it? Let's see. There we go. So, anxiety is still an issue for us. Global anxiety, for goodness sake. That comes up, right? And so sometimes we can fall into kind of cliches of peace because we're clinging. We're clinging to, well, we're trying to avoid, maybe it's more sort of avoidance of that anxiety. So let's just agree to just disagree, and it is what it is. My uncle is who he is, so I'm just going to not deal with that. Or And this is critically, this is from lack of confidence that we do this. Or we attack. And ironically, actually, attack is from lack of confidence as well. We want to push, we want to make somebody an enemy, we want to push them away so that they can't hurt us, right? Maybe we'll punish them in some way that'll make them withdraw, even subtly. Or, and this one's very interesting, we pretend to understand. We mimic a connection that we're actually not feeling. We're smiling, we say, oh my God, I really understand what you're saying. We don't understand what they're saying. Actually, we're quite shocked by what they're saying. And it's a way to manage that same pain and fear, right? So we're not going to touch deeply into the material of green light communication, green zone communication today. We can't. This is too brief. So this is a very simplified version of something that's much more complex that I could talk about for 4 days. Some people in this room have heard me talk about it for 4 days. But it's, suppressing truth can be a way to manage pain, which lands us in codependence. Suppressing compassion, there's the attack, lands us in feeling cut off. So these are not satisfying ways of managing pain. These are actually quite unsatisfying. Now, I want to say there's 2 kinds of pain. And we say, there's the pain of life, unavoidable pain, like a wound. This happens to be my foot the other day. I was walking on the beach and a rock rolled over on my foot. And there you go, you have a wound. It's not, nobody intended it, it just happens. And it hurts. Naturally, it hurts. Again, thank goodness it hurts, because otherwise you wouldn't know. So I was able to try to, take care of this wound. And that's the key. If you take care of the wound, I cleaned it. I'm here in Hawaii, I'm in the tropics. Infection is a very real thing and you don't want it. So I cleaned it very carefully and I replaced the bandages every day. And I put iodine on it, to protect it. You protect the wound. That's very important. You don't just go running around further in the mud with your wounds. It's a very bad idea. So when you feel that wound, when you're mindful of feeling that wound, you stop, you pull back, you protect. Now, otherwise, you get unnecessary pain, which is an infected wound. And then there you are in the hospital. And it's much, much more unpleasant. So we can be mindful of taking care of ourselves in the midst of communication. There's a lot to say about this. We're just going to barely touch on this. So these wounds are going to happen. And preventing the infection is important for us. It's important for our societies. Now, what this can allow in terms of communication, if we take care of ourselves, if we take care of others when they have a wound, whatever that is, and we don't have to go deeply into this today. What does it mean to take care of someone when they've had an emotional wound? It opens up communication again. It allows them to heal and be open to a real exchange. Now, a real exchange of communication goes in both directions. It's not just talking at somebody. It's not just listening. It's a genuine exchange. And you feel it. When that happens, you can feel the connection. And there's a vibrancy, there's an aliveness to it. Now, if that connection breaks, that bridge does not connect, you do not want to move forward. Now, this happens moment by moment. This is not a one-time deal. There's no people who you say, well, that person's broken permanently. That's not how it works. These are moments. So you feel it and you don't move forward when the situation's not right. So you could hold steady with mindfulness. And if it's difficult, if it's too difficult, you feel wounded by being there, you back off and tend to your wounds. And then there's those situations where it's just unclear. It could go either direction. You know, is this bridge even going to hold a vehicle? You're not sure. So then you have to be very careful. Careful. We're using the pun here. So full of care. These are the situations to be especially slow, kind, and even more encouraging. You know, when somebody feels like they're on the edge of breaking the connection, that's the time to really lean in. And then communication can open again. And if you're mindful, you actually feel that moment. And then it's time to move forward. Now, it doesn't mean it's all, you know, rainbows and kittens. You could have a very serious conversation when communication opens up. You could talk about serious, difficult things. In fact, it's when you should talk about difficult things. But feel it. Feel it. You have the capacity. And you have the capacity because of that natural communication system that Chris took us through. We tend to centralize in one of these or two of these and ignore the third. Broaden out your awareness. Use your skills. Broaden out and balance. Keep these three channels open. It's the best possible medicine, both for you personally and for society. So for this next demonstration, actually, Katarina, can you add Chris to my screen? Great. So Chris and I are just going to have a basic conversation. I mean, we're colleagues, we're friends, we know each other. So Chris, I just and your job, everyone watching, your job is to use your awake body, tender heart, and open mind to witness. What do you sense? And then we're going to have breakout rooms talking about this for 10 minutes. Okay, so really drop in, see what you can gather. Hey Chris, thanks for jumping on the call. I really I just wanted to tell you this crazy story.
Yeah,
Actually, I don't
yeah,
know if you have some time to process.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Tell me what's going on.
well, you know, I was hanging out with Suzanne, and she was doing that thing she does, you know, the same stuff we talked about before.
Oh yes, oh yes.
Yeah, and it was so frustrating. It was so frustrating. Um, you know, when there's that certain tone of voice she gets and she drops in, and I just feel like I don't know what to do to, um, I don't know what to do to change it. I mean, I just feel like we've been through this so many times, you know, and um, just, I, you know, I'm, when I think about different things I've tried in the past, they just seem like they're not working. Um, you know, you know what I mean? Like stuff you and I have talked about stuff, and um, I don't know if you have any ideas or so. Um, so wow, I'm feeling weird. Chris is doing this thing, and I just don't. I mean, I feel like we connect usually, but I don't know what's going on. Something's going on, and just not. You know, it just brings up a lot of scatteredness. I feel very scattered suddenly. I don't feel confident. I kind of like, I don't know what to say anymore. And just takes me back to being like a kid or something, like trying to talk to my dad or okay. And that's the end of our scene here. To just feel like whatever you've just experienced. And then what we'd like you to do is to go into breakout rooms. You're going to be there with there'll be 3 of you in a room. So say hello, say your name, say where you're from, and then 2 minutes each share your experience just witnessing this in terms of what you felt in your body, what you felt at an emotional level, and what you noticed in your mind. And then there'll be 4 more minutes to talk, and then we'll bring you back and take a break right after that for 5 minutes.